This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned.
Tom, as always,
Arkansas
good
operated.
morning. Thanks
Go
for jumping on with
Pascal.com.
this. I want to start with the game last night. We saw Eric Musselman following the Baylor loss, really tried to get some good guards, and then after the Duke loss, he really focused on size. Based on how UConn was able to pull it together this season, what do you think what are some of his takeaways that he has for his team that he wants to address, and how UConn was able to win it all this year?
Well, good morning, you guys. UConn just had really a bit of everything. They had guards who could dribble, penetrate. They had three-point shooting guards. They had a lot of height. They brought in a 7-footer off the bench who, you look at their offensive rebounding last night and really throughout the tournament, it was phenomenal. So it's hard to assemble a roster that has the depth of talent, the height at guard, quickness, height inside, physicality, like Sonogo and them. But I think Eric Musselman has, kind of his plan. And I think if you add a kind of a sharpshooter to what they had last year, then, they're a little bit of a different team. And that was one thing they were lacking, was just, a couple of three-point guys who could really bludgeon you from out there. So he knows what he's doing. He's gonna add to this roster, and there's going to be depth to it. And I don't doubt that they're going to be right back in the mix again next year.
Tom, there's plenty of sharpshooters in the portal right now, including Max Abmas and L.J. Cryer, who Arkansas played 2 years ago, and then Cryer this past year. Do you think Musselman is more likely to maybe go after a guy that he's played against in the last couple years?
Well, we've heard him talk in his times with the media that the guys he's gone against personally, he knows their game. He can break them down, from a scouting standpoint. And I love Max Abmas. I mean, what a scorer. What a heart on that kid. Arkansas almost got eliminated by Oral Roberts on his three-point shot. So either one of those guys, I think, could add elements. And where I don't feel comfortable is talking about what it means to the locker room, because when they examine these guys, when they talk to people who know them, and I don't mean just these two, but everybody, they have to weigh, what does this guy do for our locker room? What kind of leader is he? Is he a team player, and all that kind of stuff? So there'll be a lot more adept at talking about that.
Yeah, and when you look at just the way the sport's changed, we were looking through some numbers a minute ago on kind of what UConn has done over the last 25 years. Everybody focuses on the 5 titles, but Tom, they've missed the tournament 8 times, didn't get out of the first weekend 7 times. 3 of their title games are against 5 seeds or worse, won 5 conference titles. Point is, a lot of ups and downs. 3 different conferences, I believe, but Big East twice, conference moves, 3 different head coaches. And I don't say that negatively. What it tells me, though, is you can catch lightning in a bottle. I'm not sure UConn hasn't caught lightning in the bottle multiple times here. And for a program like Arkansas that seems to have a good foundation, gives me hope that, you're just a piece or 2 away and catching a good break and catching a 5 seed or higher in a championship game. Some of the things UConn can done could happen to you.
Oh, it's absolute. And I think every team across the country can take heart in a program like UConn. And I don't know if there's a fan base. I mean, maybe there's just a couple like Kansas and Kentucky, maybe UCLA, who would be very content with being eliminated in the first round, losing as a number 1 seed, if it came with 5 titles in 25 years or whatever for UConn. Yeah, I mean, they would take. There are programs that would take 1 title in 25 years at the expense of some heartbreaking losses. But if you're Arkansas, you can draw from that. A lot of programs can. That you don't do so well in your conference sometimes, but your health comes together at the right time. You really figure out your roster in the postseason, like Dan Hurley appeared to. All the conference movement and everything. It doesn't matter when it comes to. Think about UConn as a basketball program. I mean, dominant for more than a decade in women's hoops, and to have added 5 men's titles. Jim Calhoun created a monster. the one they won under Kevin Ollie, unbelievable. They just basically come out of nowhere, have a good roster, and boom, win a national championship. It can happen to you.
Yeah. So what's the biggest thing for the sport? We kind of reflect back on the sport as a whole. Portal, NIL, all of these things have dramatically changed things in the last 12 months or so, or 24 months, 36 months. Mm-hmm. Is the sport healthy? What needs to be the next consideration for the sport?
Well, that is a great question, and the leaders of the game would have to come together to maybe solve or address that. But I would say this. When you have as many Cinderellas or lower seeds as there was this year and all the ones eliminated, it might have taken out maybe some of the big storylines, some of the draws for people, for the eyes. But I don't think it reflects poorly on the health of the game that there were a lot of upsets. And I think it goes to show that in the NIL era, I mean, the way you put together your roster, the locker room culture that you create, you can go on a run. I mean, San Diego State won Squeaker. Wasn't that the Memphis game in their opening round? And it could have been a totally different team. It could have been a team like Memphis go on that run. So I don't know. I don't reflect poorly on the health of the game that all these teams kind of came out of nowhere. And I really personally was rooting for a first-time champion. But when I got to look at UConn and the way they were blowing people out early in the tournament, and then a hot Arkansas team, I mean, they just got them down and didn't let them up. I felt like they were the team to beat to win this whole thing.
Talking with Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and Whole Hog Sports. Tom, I know we're going to get a chance to see some football practice this week, and I think the scrimmage on Saturday. We were talking about Pro Football Focus having Arkansas's quarterback KJ Jefferson as a top 10 returning QB. In your opinion, is there a better returning quarterback in the league than KJ?
Yeah, maybe not. It is a nice class coming out of the SEC this year with Young, Hooker. Really hate that he got hurt, and Levis. Let's see. Down at LSU, Jalen, he's a good returner. Arkansas kind of held him down, but he had his massive games like the Alabama game. There's a few others, but look, KJ's put together a really fine career. If you just look at him statistically and like physically and bringing up a program that had been really struggling to win 9 games in 21 and then come so close to repeating that last year, and a couple of games that they lost he wasn't playing in, speaks strongly to KJ's value to the program. He's going to wind up with some career records if he stays healthy this season. So I think it just reflects well that he stuck with it behind Felipe, and he got the starting job, and he came back for his senior year.
You just spoke to KJ backing up Felipe Franks. Jacoby Criswell, amongst others, is going to be backing up KJ this year. I know there wasn't a lot of confidence from the fan base when KJ went down with your backup quarterback. Is that more solidified this year with Fortin playing some and Jacoby Criswell, who the staff seems to be excited about?
I think so. I think your overall depth at quarterback behind KJ, you'd feel a lot better if you were to have to go out a game. Criswell having gotten it done a little bit at North Carolina, and Fortin, I mean, he found Matt Landers for a touchdown against LSU when it didn't look like Arkansas could move it very well. Of course, he got blasted as soon as he delivered the ball. Harold Perkins was just a beast. I've not seen maybe personally a defensive masterpiece quite like Harold Perkins put on Arkansas. But anyway, yeah, and then, Malachi Singleton, he can come along. So it's just that when these guys are thrust into a game, Fortin got his shot against Mississippi State. Didn't go well, but here comes Malik Hornsby and moves the offense some, rushes for over 100 yards. And then Malik Hornsby gets his start against LSU. It doesn't go well, and Fortin comes in and throws a touchdown pass. So there's always a lot of pressure on the number 2 QB, and I do feel like Arkansas should be in a better position this year if they have to go to him.
What's the feel or the sense you get from Sam with his staff. I mean, that's the other thing we've talked about throughout this spring. Half the coaching staff are new faces, still trying to figure out new players on the team. How settled does the head coach seem to be with his staff right now? What's the feeling you get when he spoke with you guys?
I think he's got a pretty good feel, like a good mojo for what's happening. Defensively, Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson kind of bring a different flair, and they're younger, and they're players' coaches, but yes, they're also, they can be tough on the guys. I like, and I said this with you guys before, I like the way Marcus Woodson does some of the corrections. He brings them over to the side, and he's talking about technique or where their eyes were, where they need to focus, what needs to happen with their hips and so on, their alignment. And I think he's got a understated confidence, low-key confidence in the fact that they're going to have some veteran leadership on offense and a pretty good amount of skill guys back with a decent amount of O-line returners and kind of building depth at tight end, coupled with a fresh style on defense. I just worry about their depth. I mean, I was thinking about this morning. Cam Ball got hurt. We might not see him the rest of spring. Well, what if they had lost Cam Ball the way they did Torian Carter? Then they're in a world of hurt at defensive tackle. I mean, they already feel like they've got to find some more guys just to have good numbers at that spot. And so having a healthy Torian Carter and Cam Ball and Eric Gregory going into the fall is just really paramount for this team. And then I really feel they've got to add one or two other defensive tackles, just guys who can plug and demand double teams.
10 or 11 more days left in the practice period. What's bigger, the next 10 or 11 days, or what happens beginning on April 15th in the portal?
Well, Tommy, I don't know. They both have great value, obviously. You're still installing your systems on both sides of the ball. So you want to go into the summer feeling like your guys know the playbook and have a really good grasp on what the checks are. I mean, you can still work through that in the summer and in the fall a little bit too. But obviously, trying to get maybe another linebacker, another D tackle, a couple of safeties out of the portal is going to be huge. And while there's a ton of basketball talent right now in the portal, in football it's a little different that so many guys made their moves after the season. There will be some more after spring ball. I mean, we've seen it with Arkansas last couple of years. And having, being on top of the game, who's going to enter their name and trying to get them on this campus is going to be super huge. So I think they both have strong value for Arkansas football.
Tom, a baseball question or two before we let you go. No Arkansas State game tonight. That game has been canceled. You got Ole Miss this weekend. Probably the biggest news that came out of yesterday at the Swatters Club is the status of Brady Tigert, who might be able to go by the end of the month. How important is he to the Arkansas lineup based on what you've seen the last couple weeks and their struggles to a certain extent?
Well, when you got a veteran arm who's got a great curveball, I mean, a potential, like a swing and miss guy in the back of your bullpen, it's such a feather in your cap. The way that Matt Hobbs and Dave Van Horn have pieced together the pitching after they got blown up by LSU in those two games and then blown up by Bama in game one, the way they pieced it together, I mean, yeah, Tavian Josenberger was the MVP of the weekend with his hitting. Mm-hmm. But Dylan Carter pitching 2 games, and I'm not sure the total, 5+ or maybe even 6 innings in 2 games, both wins, that was huge for Arkansas. I mean, the way they're moving around the pieces, Cody Adcock, Will McIntyre hasn't given great innings the last 2 starts. They need to get him back going. But if you could get 3 or 4 innings out of Brady Tigert on a weekend here by the end of the month, it adds phenomenal value. And then when you have performances like Gage Wood closing out Game 3 against Bama, you're just starting to give confidence to some other guys, and that when Tigert comes back, you're in a stronger position.
Tom, you mentioned Josenberger. He wins the SEC Player of the Week. You think about the transfers Dave's brought in, Borfin, I think, from Oklahoma, Wagner from Creighton, and then Josenberger from Kansas. We've talked about Sam Pittman landing some key players out of the portal. What do you think Dave's done the last couple of years since that opened up a little more, and how do you think he's gone about that?
In all honesty, I think you could apply strong portal sense to basically every sport on this campus right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened in softball. Eric Musselman has had Titanic pieces come onto his program, and in the same in football and in baseball. You look at last year's team, where would they have been without some of that transfer talent? This year's team, Wagner and Josenberger have been two of the biggest components in the batting order. And Jace Borfin, who was an ad last year from Oklahoma, hitting over 400. So I don't know. They have I think they have a really strong sense that who adds to your, first of all, who's a great athlete, who can hit, who can pitch, et cetera, but who can add value to your locker room. Mm-hmm. And it's not always an easy thing to do, but it looks like Dave Van Horn and his staff are on top of that.
Heard Phil mention this yesterday. They were already a game short because they only scheduled 55. Now you lose this one, you're down to 54. It will be interesting to see if there's someone they'd like to add to a midweek game at some point, where that might even fit in the schedule. And then also, Tom, maybe the ramifications that could have on the metrics somewhere down the line, if any. So I thought that was an interesting thought from Phil yesterday when this game for tonight was determined to be canceled due to pending weather.
Exactly. And I think what we've seen in recent years is when they've lost a game, it is very rare that they've replaced it. It's just harder to, when you think about a team like Arkansas State, for instance, the drive they have over here and then getting back. And when you add weather, potential bad weather to it, it doesn't make any sense to try to play tonight, obviously. But then where do you plug that game back in? And from what Dave Van Horn said at the Swatters Club yesterday, they might look at it, but that typically hasn't resulted in adding a game. I think their RPI is going to be fine when you think of who they started the season with, some of their non-conference games. It's not like 2 years ago, or it's not like last year when they kind of fell out of it. I think they're in really strong shape to, not lose any ground on the RPI.
Tom, great stuff. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Get ready for another big weekend, and we'll ask you about the Masters. You're a Georgia guy. We'll talk about the Masters on Thursday as well.
Yeah, I like the sound. And Mateo Fernandez will be, De Oliveira will be in it for the Razorbacks, and as well as Taylor Moore. So I look forward to that.
We'll get you to say all of that again. All right, Tom, we'll talk to you on Thursday.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games right through the Final Four and the championship game. BetOnline is where your college basketball headquarters are this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts.